So we've got a newly appointed leader of the opposition in the form of Rishi Sunak, who has virtuously declared that he will not oppose the government's agenda for the sake of opposing. But what is the point of the opposition, particularly when the King's speech could have been delivered with a Conservative government? There are only one or two things that weren't in the Conservative manifesto. That nationalising the rail industry, yes, we were thinking of doing that. We were certainly thinking of this ridiculous football regulator. We were certainly planning to make it impossible for anybody with any sense to be a private landlord. And what's frustrating is there's been an election and people decided they wanted change. They wanted things to be different. And they've got more of the same, just a little bit extra. So why are we not getting a radical change from a new government? Why are they basically carrying on with a lab-con view of the world? Was Nigel Farage right after all? However you vote, the establishment won't change. Tessa, you're a lefty. Were you inspired by this red and tooth and claw brimstone King's speech?
I don't think that Keir Starmer is in number 10 because he's inspirational. I think Keir Starmer's in number 10 because we didn't want people like you in charge. What's interesting is I felt the King, who we know has been vulnerable recently, 75 years old, clearly felt so much better about reading this. I listened intently last year as he said his government would be drilling again in the North Sea, knowing, as we know, Charles is a green bot. And there were just, I think, tipping points for so many people around this, what your government was planning and hoping to do, whether it was in the face of intense global warming and climate disruption, the drilling, or, for example, the horrible Rwanda project that was never going to work. And I think it was just a relief to have those sort of hot points removed.
But Labour's promised that it's going to deal with illegal immigration.
Yeah,
I mean, it may be untrue, but it said
the traffickers. And I think you're also being disingenuous, whether it's the National Wealth Fund, whether it's the Great Energy Bill. I mean, some of it you won't like, the strengthening of employment rights, a lot of it quite top-down, which flies in the face of the micro-mayors.
The Great Energy Bill is very similar to the dreadful energy bill that we passed in the last Parliament.
Yes, but as I said, some of those nasty right-wing teeth have been pulled. You know, this is a government that more people can feel is acceptable until we see, by the way, them starting to build houses in the leafy constituencies where they've just won.
I mean, Emma, it seems to me that there is no change in the political class, that the establishment is still in charge. Civil servants probably running the show. It's the Uni Party.
It's the Uni Party. There are a couple of really, really key unresolved issues from today, from this wonderful agenda that's been set out. NHS, I've still heard nothing concrete about how we're going to rebuild and reform our broken, our struggling healthcare system. Immigration, which is the big issue for people in this country. Since Sir Starmer came in, we've had a surge in small boat crossings. Far from being a deterrent, Keir Starmer, the new Labour administration seems to be a kind of enticement to people smugglers in this country. And the third one, and the overwhelming one, the sort of umbrella, is where is the money coming from? Where is the money coming from for any of these plans? For housing. You're going to build 300,000 new homes every year. Well, has anyone talked to the house builders about this?
If you build sensibly, they can't do that. You don't need to fund it. If house building, you know,
you do need to fund it.
Wealth.
What about the reform of the criminal justice system? An absolute joke. Where's the money coming from? Even little things, Jacob, like the breakfast clubs in every school. Well, I was talking to the nursery today. They said, that's all very well. You need staff to come in at 7:30 in the morning. It's not about just putting a bowl of cornflakes in front of every child. You can't just announce this stuff. No, Sir Keir Starmer's just spewing out this stuff. Where is the money coming from? The sums do not add up.
Actually, I think you're spewing a little bit there. I think what's interesting is the opposition won't come from Rishi Sunak. The opposition will come from Labour's own benches. They have this thumping majority, but there's considerable discontent about the idea of child benefit being capped for 2 children. I live in a poor constituency. I live in Lambeth, where they're threatening to close half our primary schools because the birth rate has plummeted by 1/3. You may have the money for 6 children, but the truth is the birth rate for the average woman in this country has fallen to 1.49 children per woman. That is shocking. It's not replacement. That's why Labour can't stop migration, because at the moment they can't afford to support people who are having children. And you will see the likes of West Street
You really
who grew up
think
with
that they
6
haven't got
siblings.
control of migration because they need people to come to this country?
You need workers.
No.
Where does your future workforce come from if you are not incentivising people to have
We've
children?
got 9 million people who are economically inactive. This is years away.
You've got
and the immigration problem
which is
is
one of-
now.
which is
people
one of the
on
reasons
benefits who
why-
are not working.
Right, which is
who
one
could
of
get
the
to
reasons
work.
why they are trying to strengthen employment rights, because you've got to make work look more attractive.
but
It's not about making work look more attractive.
Yes.
Get young people. We've got so many young people at NEET who are not in education, employment or training, who are sat at home on universal credit. Well, that is not acceptable. You leave school, fine. Go into a job and you work for your
I
work
just
for your
don't
living.
think there are that many of them. I think that is an extreme exaggeration. And actually, I was relieved to see that they weren't like trying to cap migration, which is going to, for example, if you include international students, that then hits your tertiary sector. One of the great revenue drivers and the soft connection, the soft cultural connection between countries is our extremely impressive university.
Well, some of our universities are extremely impressive. They're not all. There are some rotten courses in some rotten universities that are taking in a lot of people who are coming here because it's an easy route for migration. I mean, we're not just talking about Oxford and Cambridge.
And I think some of their economic policies could have serious unintended consequences. If I was a private landlord in this country right now, I would not be happy. If I was starting a business, if I was running a business. And you're talking about workers getting these rights, the sick pay and all of that from day one. How are you meant to run a profitable business?
It just doesn't quite make sense. On the one hand, you've got a criticism about people staying at home and not working, and this, on the other hand, you're saying, well, we don't want to give them any rights when they do start working.
They won't go to work with rights from day one because employers won't look to employ people because they can't afford them. You need to have that time. And 2 years is the right time to allow people to decide, have we got this right?
The truth is, Jacob, super flexible, race to the bottom working environment hasn't delivered results. We've not invested in productivity. We've got poor growth rates. We've got poor skill sets. And that's
nothing to do with
It's about education and training. Do you really think people are sitting at home on the internet because they don't get workers' rights from day one? They don't even know about workers' rights. They've just realised that the benefit system, it's easier to do that than to actually get off their backsides and go and work. We need a more rigorous system in this country.
As somebody who fought her employer in a tribunal because of on the basis of the way in which I was treated, and I won, I am very much for supporting the worker. You have to provide people with an environment in which they can operate. And that means shoring up the likes of parental rights. I was sacked 2 weeks after I gave birth.
Hold on, you also need to support employers to be able to employ younger people, maybe on less pay.
Which is why...
To be able to work out who are the people they want to keep after a year or two.
And I know that Jacob will be thrilled that we can't have the like of Liz Truss's budget again. Apparently she's contesting the idea that what she did during the budget, racking up our mortgage rates, was disastrous.
Of course she is.
But actually, I rather
yes,
like
because it was
the
Bank
idea.
of England who bungled it. I mean, the bungling of the Bank of England is quite extraordinary.
It is.
And the government wants to give more power to the
It's just
ABR,
astonishing.
having bungled the FCA first.
They had one job. They had one job to keep inflation at 2%, and he has failed to do that for I don't know how much of the last...
She announced on the back of a fag packet, what is it, £45 million worth of unfunded tax cuts? That sort of behaviour needs to be safeguarded against.
It made absolutely no difference. What mattered was that the Bank of England had failed to raise interest rates as fast as the Federal Reserve, and therefore the pound fell strongly against the dollar.
All this hysteria. Liz Truss crashed the global economy. She caused interest rates to... No, that's what people said, that she crashed the economy around the world overnight. Of course she didn't.
But she made it much harder.
Liz Truss didn't crash the economy. We've had an omission from the lefty. We've got that one.
Not globally.
We're keeping that on the record.
But she made
that
things
was whipped
very
up.
hard.
I think that was all whipped up by the media, actually, that little Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng episode. I really do. I just don't see... She blames...
Do you know what's really interesting is people have been worried about the growth of the GB News viewership in the wake of a Labour government. But actually, I realise it's just given you guys a whole lot more to moan about.
Thank you so much. Well, you never moan about anything.
No.